Talked to him a little bit to find out about him. He didn't give us nothing. He says, I'm a doctor, I'm a preacher, and you'll be in my office next week to get your throat worked out. I said, okay. But if you look at the accolades listed on the bio for Dr. Mansfield, we talked about. I met Dr. Mansfield ladies and gentlemen, please stand as I welcome to Dr. Eric Mansfield.
President Johnson, lovely white audience, first vice, Rita Tate, second vice, Dick Root, to all members, chapters that are represented, the Buffalo Soldiers Motorcycle Club. I am indeed honored and just really thrilled to be here. After talking to your president at dinner tonight, I'm even more humbled and more honored to be here. And if anyone sat and talked to President Johnson for any length of time, he is not only an enthusiastic president, but he's also one that deeply cares about the Buffalo Soldiers and their mission. And I've learned so much just by sitting here and talking to him that I wish I was a Buffalo Soldier. I'm not sure I could ride 200 miles a week, or 200 miles a month, or 200 miles a year. But I am proud to be counted here tonight. I'll keep my comments brief. But I want to celebrate the Buffalo Soldiers and the Buffalo Soldiers Motor Club. I believe that this motorcycle club and the Buffalo Soldiers are important for three reasons. One, it allows us to never lose our historical perspective. Secondly, watching Buffalo Soldiers work lets us know that we can never rest on our laurels. And finally, when you see what Buffalo Soldiers do and the diversity within Buffalo Soldiers, it inspires us to see what America can really be and what America can become. If you look at the history of Buffalo Soldiers, it is a story of overcoming. If you look at anything at the history of where Buffalo Soldiers have come from, you see it is a great story of how people have overcome. And what it says is that for some misguided Americans and for some misguided generations, that we haven't always been this way. We haven't always been able to come to the Holiday Inn Bordeaux and eat where we wanted to eat. We haven't always been able to drive whatever car we wanted to drive and stop by the side of the road to get something to eat. We haven't always been able to walk in the front door of the store. But we got here because someone sacrificed. It has not always been an easy road for those of us who've been African American. There are some who believe that we've gotten here because of affirmative action set aside a government give out. But I will submit to you today, tonight, when you look at the Buffalo Soldiers, you know that's wrong. There were some who would say that we have not given enough, we have not sacrificed enough. And I would say if you say that, then you don't know your history. Those of us who sit here tonight, we've come through great struggle. And those of us who are African Americans can say that we've not only gone through great struggle, but we've overcome a lot of things. The Buffalo Soldiers and their legacy are a testament to the hard work of African Americans throughout our society. Throughout the Indian Wars, the Battle of San Juan, 2 world wars in Korea, Vietnam, we fought for freedom for others abroad when we did not have freedoms here in our own country. We struggled through the civil rights movement, struggled through lynching, struggled through racism, and yet we're still here. Through the hatred, the beatings, the lynchings, we survived and we're still here. We were beaten, but we could not be broken. You could hold us back, but you could not hold us down. You kept us from reading, but we still communicated. Kept us from talking, but we still prayed. We overcame. The jails could not hold us. The beatings could not break us. The lynching could not kill us. The laws could not stop us. The whip could not hurt us. We kept on marching and kept on moving. And we overcame. We overcame with great size. Because once we got here as Africans, once we walked on these mundane shores, this country changed. Once we got here, hams got hopped and potatoes got sweetened and greens got collared. Once we got here, I know Abner Doubleday invented baseball, but it took Jackie Robinson to give it steel. Hank Aaron to give it a hammer, and Isaac Smith to give it a wizard. I know Naismith invented basketball, but it took Julius Erving to give it a doctor, Irvin Johnson to give it magic, and Michael Jordan to give it air. I know the Europeans invented football, but it took O.J. to give it juice, Joe Green to make it mean, and Walter Payton to make it sweet. It did not come easy. And what the Buffalo Soldier says to everyone, that if you've reached any measure of success, it is because someone worked hard before you got there. My grandfather, who, like President Johnson, grew up on a farm in Rayville, Louisiana. When I was a kid in the summer, he would always take me to work on the farm. And one day, when I was out on the farm, he called me over to see a turtle that was sitting on top of a fence post. And he said, "Eric, what does this mean?" And me being an 11-year-old boy who didn't want to be out in the sun anyway, I said, "I don't really know what that means, Granddad. Can I just go inside?" And he said, "No." He said, what you understand about the turtle on the fence post, you don't know how he got there. But you know he did not get there by himself. And when you look at the Buffalo Soldiers, that tells you that whatever measure of success that we've made, we didn't get there by ourselves. Before there was an Usher, there was a James Brown. Before there was a Whitney Houston, there was an Aretha Franklin. Before there was a Destiny Child, there was Gladys Knight and the Pips. Before there was a Public Enemy, there was Gil Scott-Heron. Before there was a Halle Berry, there was a Cicely Tyson. Before there was a Denzel Washington, there was a Sidney Poitier. Before there was a Kirk Franklin, there were 5 blind boys from Alabama. Before there was Yolanda Adams, there was Mahalia Jackson. Before there was a Colin Powell, there was a Chappie James. Before there was a Damian Thomason, there was a Jim Brown and a Gail Sayers. Before there was a Donovan McNabb, there was a Doug Williams. Before there was a Tiger Woods, there was a Lee Elder. Before there was a Barry Bonds, there was a Hank Aaron. Before there was Shaquille O'Neal, there was Bill Russell. Before there was a LeBron James, there was Oscar Robertson. And before there was a Condoleezza Rice, there was a Harriet Tubman. That has always been the way we work. That one generation paved the way for the next generation. Rosa Parks sat down so that Martin King would stand up. Martin stood up so that those in Greensboro would sit in. Those in Greensboro sat in so the Freedom Riders would ride. The Freedom Riders rolled so that Jesse Jackson would run, but Jesse ran so that Obama would win. So the Buffalo Soldiers first tell us that we didn't get here by ourselves. But the second thing Buffalo Soldiers tell us, that we can't rest on our laurels. If you watch this Fayetteville chapter, this North Carolina chapter, you see them everywhere. They have 3 or 4 events in one day. They'll ride 130 miles in one day. They'll start in Fayetteville and go out to Hope County, then go down to Laurinburg, swing over in Lumberton, and then come back up here and still say there's work to be done. And I would tell you that if you look at our society where we are right now, there's still work to be done. 27% of African Americans in North Carolina live below the poverty line, which is a family of 4 who makes $20,000 or less. 34.2% of Hispanics, and 30% of Native Americans. 72% of all those who live in Cumberland County live below the poverty line. 89% in Robinson County, 73% in Hope County. We have a 22% dropout rate in high school in North Carolina, 28% for African Americans, 31% for Hispanic, and 30% for Native Americans. Martin Luther King, speaking at a Birmingham church, told his congregants these words. He says, "I've come here tonight and plead with you. Be proud of yourself and believe that you are somebody. I said to a group last night, no one else can do this for us. No document can do this for us. No Lincoln Proclamation, no Kennedy or Johnson Civil Rights Bill can do this for us. If the Negro is to be free, he must move down into the inner resources of his own soul and sign with a pen and ink of self-asserted manhood his own Emancipation Proclamation." And what he was saying is that if we're going to change stuff, we can't ask the government to do it. But we got to start doing it for ourselves. And I ask you in this room, at what point did we start accepting bad behavior? At what point did our culture say it was okay to do nothing? And when did it become okay for us to have our children aspire to be gangsters instead of being governors, to be pimps instead of presidents, to be doped up instead of being a doctor, to be liquored up instead of being a lawyer, to be a juvenile delinquent instead of being the judge, instead of being a rapper instead of a reverend, a class clown instead of setting the class curve, cussing people down instead of being in the tavern? And when did that become acceptable for us? And I believe that we have begun to believe what society says about us. That the only way we can get respect is we have money. And so we bling and sing. We pimp out. We pimp our rides and pimp our houses, pimp our women, and ultimately we pimp ourselves. Amen. And so now we have a generation of folks who have cash but no character, houses but no honor, riches but no respect, important but they have no integrity. They have stuff but they make no sense. Buffalo Soldier, the 9th and 10th Cav, they did not endure what they had to endure for us to do the things that we're doing now. Charles Drew did not endure just so doctors can live in big houses, drive fancy cars, and do nothing in their community. Thurgood Marshall did not argue the Brown versus Board of Education so that attorneys could sit in their office and adjudicate the law, but advocate their responsibility to their community. Harriet Tubman did not free slaves so that 2 generations later that we'd be on the covers exploiting our bodies and our race. Nat King Cole did not start a television show so that 50 years Flavor Flav can be sitting on MTV saying, "Yeah, boy." Each generation is supposed to set up for the next generation. We have more access than we've ever had. More money in this generation than any generation before it. More education opportunity in this generation than any generation before it. And yet this generation will be the first generation of African Americans who have less material wealth than the generation before it. Buffalo Soldiers, when you look at a Buffalo Soldier, should inspire you to say that this is not where we ought to be. That our standards ought to be higher. That not only should our standards be higher, but we must force those around us to be higher. I hear students all the time come in my office. When I look at them, and I talk about pulling your pants up. I talk about being respectful and gaining respect. And they say, "Doc, you're always hard on us." I'm just a reflection of my society. And I say, my brother, you've misunderstood what a mirror is for. The mirrors are not only just for reflection, but they're also for correction. And what you need to do is correct yourself before you wreck yourself. In September 1867, Private John Randall, Troop G of the 10th Cavalry Regiment,